Imagine a room full of people striving for success. Some play fair, working hard, staying true to their values. Others lie, manipulate, and trample over anyone in their way. And yet, it's often the ruthless ones who climb the highest. Why? Is the world truly rigged in favor of the worst among us? From emperors and conquerors to CEOs and politicians, history shows a disturbing pattern. Moral compromise often leads to remarkable power. This is not an accident, it's deeply rooted in human nature and the realities of competition. In a world where resources are scarce and time is limited, hesitation is costly. Those who act without guilt, who take instead of weight, rise. Power doesn't necessarily go to the most kind-hearted or the most honest. It goes to those who are willing to do what others are not. It goes to the risk-takers, the strategists, the ones who understand that in high-stakes arenas, idealism alone is not enough. Morality, while beautiful in theory, is not always rewarded in practice. This realization forces us to confront a painful truth. What if morality, in certain situations, is not a strength, but a liability? What if being too kind, too fair, or too trusting actually disqualifies you from leadership in a brutal world? But the paradox is clear. Those who rise by ruthless means often fall the same way. Their empires are shaky, their allies opportunistic, and their legacies tainted. For every Caesar who seized the crown, there was a Brutus waiting in the shadows. For every corporate giant who played dirty, there was a scandal that eventually brought them down. So we arrive at a question deeper than mere ambition. Is the rise of the ruthless inevitable? Or are we simply playing the game wrong? Nietzsche believed power is neither good nor evil. It's a force, like fire. It can build or destroy, depending on who wields it and how. But to understand why the worst often rise, we must explore where our ideas of good and evil even come from. What if our moral compass was shaped not by truth, but by weakness? This leads us to one of Nietzsche's most provocative and powerful concepts: master morality versus slave morality. If we want to navigate power without losing our soul, we must first understand the rules that govern it. We must see morality not as a fixed code, but as a weapon forged in the battle between dominance and survival. Only then can we begin to answer the question, how do you win in a world that rewards the worst without becoming one of them? Let's go deeper. As we stand at the crossroads of power and morality, Nietzsche offers us a bold, transformative vision that goes beyond the familiar binaries of good and evil, right and wrong. This is the concept of the Übermensch, or overman, a figure who rises above the conventional moral codes imposed by society and creates new values through their own will. Imagine standing at the edge of a vast abyss. Behind you lies the world as you know it, a world tangled in injustice, limitation, and the weight of outdated beliefs. Ahead of you stretches an uncharted path, one filled with risk, uncertainty, and the possibility of becoming something greater than you ever imagined. Most people hesitate, shackled by fear and doubt, but the Übermensch leaps forward, forging a new way. The Übermensch is not merely a stronger or more ruthless individual. They are a creator, a master of themselves and their destiny. They do not seek approval from others or depend on inherited moral frameworks. Instead, they question everything, breaking free from societal illusions and the constraints of slave morality, which glorifies weakness, submission, and resentment. At the core of the Übermensch is the will to power, but this is not the crude, selfish grasping for control that many mistake it to be. It is an inner force that drives the individual to overcome their own limitations, to grow continually, and to impose meaning on an otherwise indifferent universe. This power is not about domination over others, but about mastery over oneself. The Übermensch embodies a radical form of freedom from fear, from guilt, from the moral binaries that keep most people confined. They accept the chaos of existence and embrace the responsibility of shaping their own values. This is a path of immense courage and creativity, where weakness is not denied but transformed into strength through self-overcoming. Yet, the Übermensch is not synonymous with the ruthless tyrant or the manipulative conqueror. While the worst among us may rise through cruelty and deception, they remain trapped in the cycle of insecurity and dependence on external validation. Their power is fragile, built on exploitation and fear. In contrast, the Übermensch's power is self-generated, independent of others' approval or fleeting successes. They are not driven by the desire to crush others, but by the desire to become more authentic, more powerful, more alive. This figure stands as a challenge and an inspiration. To become an Übermensch is to reject the victim mentality and the false comforts of conventional morality. It is to accept that life is a constant struggle, but also a canvas for creation. It is to master both the external world and the internal chaos. What does this mean for us, who live in a world that often seems to reward the ruthless while punishing the virtuous? It means that true power is not about playing by the old rules or succumbing to despair. It is about creating your own rules, rewriting the game, and becoming the author of your own existence. The journey to becoming an Übermensch is difficult and lonely. It demands resilience, vision, and relentless self-examination. But it offers the promise of a life lived on your own terms, unshackled by fear or guilt, and rich with meaning. In the final chapter, we will explore how to apply these lessons practically, how to navigate the world with strategic integrity while embracing the spirit of the Übermensch, mastering power not just to survive, but to thrive and create a legacy that endures. Now that we've peeled back the illusion of fairness, it's easy to feel trapped between two extremes, ruthless exploitation or naive victimhood. The world rewards those who play dirty, but abandoning your principles entirely isn't the answer either. So where does that leave us? There is a third path, a middle ground, that many overlook, a way to wield power without losing integrity. This is what I call strategic integrity. It's not about blind morality, nor is it about cold-hearted manipulation. It's about understanding the game you're in, knowing the rules, and choosing your moves wisely while staying true to your core values. The harsh reality is that kindness alone won't carry you to the top, but cruelty for cruelty's sake is hollow and unsustainable. Strategic integrity demands something more nuanced. It requires you to be both strong and wise, to combine ambition with empathy, courage with restraint. Think of it like a game of chess. You don't win by throwing your pieces around recklessly. You win by anticipating your opponent's moves, protecting your king, and knowing when to attack or defend. Similarly, life demands a balance between assertiveness and compassion, between standing your ground and knowing when to let go. Strategic integrity means recognizing that power itself is neutral. It's neither good nor evil. What matters is how you use it. You can harness power to protect your values, create meaningful impact, and build lasting legacies. You can abuse it for short-term gain and inevitable downfall. Those who master this balance become the true players in the game of success. They don't simply react, they create the rules. They understand that strength without wisdom leads to destruction, and goodness without power leads to irrelevance. This approach requires self-awareness and discipline. You must be honest with yourself about your motivations. Are you driven by fear or by vision? Do you seek validation or do you create your own worth? Can you face discomfort and criticism without losing your center? The key is to cultivate what Nietzsche called the will to power, not as domination over others, but as the power to overcome your own limitations and shape your destiny. This internal power makes you resilient against manipulation and immune to the toxic influence of the ruthless. Strategic integrity also involves reading people deeply, not to exploit them, but to understand their needs, fears, and desires. This strategic empathy helps you navigate complex social dynamics without becoming cynical or manipulative yourself. It's about learning when to stand firm and when to adapt, when to challenge and when to cooperate. It's about playing the game, but on your terms, without sacrificing your soul. Many fail because they assume power requires abandoning kindness or fairness. But the most enduring success stories are those of people who blend strength with virtue, courage with compassion, and ambition with authenticity. This path is not easy. It demands constant reflection, growth, and sometimes hard choices. But it offers something priceless, a way to rise in a ruthless world without becoming ruthless. In the next chapter, we'll explore how this balance connects to Nietzsche's vision of the Übermensch, the individual who transcends conventional morality and masters both power and self to create a new kind of existence. From the time we are children, we're fed a comforting story that the world is fair, that hard work pays off, that good people win in the end. Fairy tales, school lessons, even religious teachings reinforce this narrative. Be honest, be kind, do the right thing, and you will be rewarded. But then we grow up. We step into the real world and watch the opposite unfold. The most dedicated employee gets passed over for promotion. The honest politician loses to the manipulator. The selfless are used, the kind-hearted crushed, and those who play the game ruthlessly seem to win again and again. This isn't just anecdotal, it's systemic. The idea that the world is fair is not a truth. It's a psychological crutch, a story we tell ourselves to create order in a world that is often anything but orderly. Psychologists call this the just world fallacy, the belief that people get what they deserve, that virtue will always be rewarded and wrongdoing always punished. But life doesn't work that way. Power doesn't concern itself with fairness. Success doesn't ask who deserves it. The system we live in, whether political, corporate, or social, is not built on justice. It's built on influence, perception, strategy, and leverage. And those who understand that play by a different set of rules. This doesn't mean fairness is meaningless. It means it's not automatic. It's not a guarantee. It's not handed out like a trophy at the end of a race. If you want fairness, you have to fight for it. If you want justice, you have to create it. And that requires power, real, unshakable, earned power. This is why so many people fail. They believe being good is enough, that playing nice will protect them. But in reality, the game is being played around them, above them, and often against them. The ones who succeed are not necessarily the ones who start with the most. They're the ones who see the truth early. That the system doesn't reward virtue, it rewards value. And value is created through strategy, courage, and the willingness to do what others won't. Does this mean you should give up on your principles? Number. But it does mean you must stop confusing idealism with strategy. Morality without power is fragile. Kindness without boundaries is exploited. Fairness without strength is ignored. The harsh truth is this: the world doesn't owe you anything, not success, not fairness, not even recognition, but you owe yourself the clarity to see that, and the strength to act on it. Nietzsche warned against blindly following inherited morals. He believed that to rise, one must reject illusions, including the illusion of a just world, not to become cruel, but to become awake. Because only when you see the world as it truly is, can you begin to change it. Fairness is not found, it is forged, and those who understand that rule the game. Picture a vast, untamed wilderness. In this world, survival is not about fairness, it's about strength, instinct, and the willingness to act without hesitation. The lion does not apologize for hunting. The storm does not ask permission to destroy. Nature does not reward morality, it rewards dominance. Now replace the wilderness with human society. Strip away the polished surface of manners, laws, and institutions, and what remains is the same primal competition for resources, status, and control. Beneath the veneer of civility, the game has never changed. It's just wearing a suit now. In this unforgiving environment, those who rise to power often share a common trait: ruthlessness. Not necessarily cruelty, but a specific psychological profile: decisiveness without guilt, ambition without hesitation, and resilience without dependency on external validation. This is not a flaw, it is an evolutionary advantage. Psychologists have long studied the traits of successful individuals in high-stakes environments, be it politics, business, or war. Again and again, patterns emerge: high ambition, low neuroticism, strategic thinking, and, more controversially, a reduced sensitivity to empathy, particularly toward perceived obstacles or threats. This doesn't mean all successful people are heartless, but it does mean that many of them possess the capacity to act when others are still debating whether they should. While most people are paralyzed by fear of failure, rejection, or being disliked, the ruthless act. They make decisions, take control, and accept the consequences later if at all. Take a closer look at the individuals who reshaped history. Julius Caesar, Napoleon, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk. What unites them is not kindness, but clarity. They understood something most people don't. In a competitive world, hesitation is a liability. And morality, when confused with weakness, becomes a chain that the powerful refuse to wear. But here lies the paradox. Ruthlessness can build empires, but it can also destroy them. The very traits that help people rise: aggression, ambition, emotional detachment, can turn toxic when left unchecked. History is full of leaders who flew too close to the sun, intoxicated by their own invincibility. Power without purpose becomes destruction. Ambition without restraint becomes tyranny. So what do we do with this knowledge? We stop pretending that success is purely a reward for goodness. We stop expecting fairness to protect us. And most importantly, we learn to balance power with principle, strategy with self-awareness. Ruthlessness, in its raw form, is a survival tool. But the individuals who last, who not only rise but remain, are those who evolve past brute domination. They use power not just to take, but to build. They are feared, yes, but also respected. Not because they were kind, but because they were clear. The world does not punish ruthlessness. It punishes weakness, masquerading as virtue. But true power lies in mastering both, the mind of the lion and the heart of the human. Ruthlessness, when tempered with vision, becomes not a flaw, but a force. So, the question is not whether you should be ruthless. The real question is, can you afford not to be? Imagine two warriors standing on a battlefield. One is bold, fierce, and unafraid. He acts decisively, guided not by permission but by his own will. He defines his values, seizes what he wants, and bends the world to fit his vision. The other waits. He is careful, cautious, seeking approval, hoping that the world will recognize his fairness and reward his virtue. One survives by power, the other survives by hope. Which one is more likely to rule? Friedrich Nietzsche saw this contrast not as mere personality types, but as two entirely different moral frameworks: master morality and slave morality. These systems are not abstract theories. They are psychological survival strategies that have defined human history. Master morality is the code of those who create power. It's rooted in strength, ambition, courage, and pride. For the masters, good is whatever elevates them, whatever affirms life, creativity, and dominance. They do not ask, is this right by someone else's standards? Instead, they ask, is this right for me? Morality here is personal, powerful, and unapologetic. Slave morality, by contrast, was born out of powerlessness. It is the morality of the oppressed, those who lacked the means to dominate and thus created a code to survive. Instead of glorifying strength, it elevates meekness. Instead of admiring ambition, it praises humility. Slave morality doesn't win wars or build empires, it adapts to survive under them. Nietzsche argued that this moral reversal wasn't rooted in universal truth, but in resentment. The weak, unable to defeat the strong, redefined evil to mean strength itself. They cast their own weakness as a virtue and condemned power as inherently corrupt. In doing so, they didn't change the world, they changed the narrative. But that narrative has consequences. By labeling ambition as greed and dominance as cruelty, slave morality neutralizes those with potential. It convinces the strong to feel guilt for their strength. It asks lions to act like sheep and calls that justice. Meanwhile, those who refuse this illusion rise. They do not wait for permission, and they are not bound by invisible chains of inherited guilt. This explains why ruthless people often succeed. It's not simply that they are cruel, it's that they reject the limitations imposed by a moral system designed to keep them small. They operate from a different playbook, one that most people are afraid to even open. And yet, the point is not to discard morality entirely, but to understand it. Nietzsche did not praise cruelty, condemned weakness, disguised as virtue. He wanted individuals to rise, not fall into blind obedience or moral self-sabotage. So where does this leave us? It forces us to ask, is the morality we live by truly our own? Or was it given to us by those who wanted us to remain obedient? Are we living as creators or as the created? To understand power, we must stop pretending the rules were written for everyone equally. They weren't. They were written by the powerful to stay in power and rewritten by the powerless to survive. The only way forward is to recognize the game, choose your morality consciously, and stop apologizing for your strength. Now that we've explored the harsh realities of power, the paradox of morality, and the transformative vision of the Übermensch, the final question remains: how do we live and succeed in this world without losing ourselves? This is the ultimate challenge in navigating a landscape where the ruthless often rise quickly, yet frequently fall, and where integrity can feel like a liability, but also remains the foundation of true, lasting strength. First, we must discard the comforting but dangerous myth that life is inherently fair. The world isn't designed to reward kindness or virtue automatically. Instead, it rewards those who understand its rules and wield power strategically. But wielding power doesn't mean abandoning your principles or becoming ruthless for the sake of cruelty. The key is strategic integrity, a balance between strength and virtue, where you act decisively without losing your sense of self or your core values. To master power with integrity requires several crucial steps. Know the game deeply. Understand the nature of power as neutral, neither inherently good nor evil. Recognize the psychological traits common among those who succeed: ambition, decisiveness, and sometimes a lowered sensitivity to fear or empathy. This knowledge isn't to become cynical, but to become wise. Develop strategic empathy. This means reading people, understanding their motives, and anticipating their moves without becoming manipulative yourself. It allows you to protect yourself from deception while maintaining authenticity. Embrace discomfort and risk. The path of growth and power is uncomfortable. Fear of failure or rejection is natural, but the Übermensch embraces risk as a necessary step in self-overcoming. Success rarely comes from waiting for permission. It comes from creating opportunities where none exist. Make hard choices without hesitation. Sometimes, mastering power means setting boundaries, walking away from toxic relationships, or making unpopular decisions. This isn't cruelty, it's strength and clarity. Create value. Don't just take it. The lasting power belongs not to those who exploit others, but to those who build, innovate, and contribute. When your power is earned through creation, it becomes a source of respect and influence that can't be easily taken away. Continuously reevaluate your values. The Übermensch doesn't accept static morality. They constantly challenge and refine their values to adapt to new realities and deeper truths. This flexibility is what keeps power from corrupting it, keeps it alive and vital. By mastering these principles, you reject both the passivity of blind virtue and the destructive chaos of ruthless ambition. Instead, you embody a new kind of leader who commands power but remains grounded in authenticity and purpose. Remember, the world may reward the ruthless in the short term, but history favors those who combine strength with wisdom. Power without integrity crumbles. Power with integrity builds legacies. As you move forward, don't seek power for power's sake. Seek to become more than your circumstances, more than the limitations society tries to impose. Become the architect of your destiny, the creator of your values, and the embodiment of the Übermensch ideal. The path is difficult, the risks are high, but the reward is a life of true power that frees, transforms, and endures. Thank you for joining this journey into the nature of power, morality, and human potential. If this message resonates with you, remember to subscribe, share, and continue seeking growth and wisdom every day. The pursuit of power is not the pursuit of domination, it is the pursuit of becoming the fullest expression of yourself. That is the ultimate victory.